Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Folding Towers podcast. It's just me today, David. I am your host. Jackie's off doing some other things today. Today's episode is all about sponsorship. Should I sponsor my local club? And how to be smart with sponsorship. If you run a business, any type of business, it doesn't take long before people come out with caps in hands asking, sometimes begging for money. Sometimes it can be hard to say no, and we're going to discuss that in depth today. But before we go any further, it would really mean a lot to me and to Jackie if you could go to your favorite podcast app and hit like on this episode, perhaps subscribe to the podcast. That's going to help us to be found by others, and it helps us to grow and to help bring this content to you. And if you like what we do, please look out for us on Facebook or Instagram. The links to those things are in the description of this podcast. Maybe even head to our website, foldingtowerspodcast.com.au. Send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. So let's jump right in. Now, I want to share with you a bit of my own journey. I started my own business back in 2016. I was really passionate and I thought, I really want to get into the field of sports massage. I had worked with footballers in the past, wasn't so excited about football. Happened to have a tier 1 netball club right at the end of my street. And I thought, if I sponsor them, I can work with some of the best in the netball field. And look, I'll just be plain honest here. I thought it was going to be my golden ticket to get rich quick. It was a really bad idea as it turned out. Things did actually start out quite well. I imagined seeing my logo on the back of shirts, maybe emblazoned above a doorway somewhere, people banging on my doors saying, hey, you sponsored the club and I'm here to get treatment from you. It gave me a real warm and fuzzy feeling. I reached out to the club and I thought, I'm going to be really smart about this. I'll ask them for their sponsors prospectus, and they provided me with one. Met with their sponsors and grants committee person. We had a coffee, we talked about some of our ambitions, and it wasn't long before they sent me an invoice for $750. I thought, great, this is going well. And that was the start of that relationship. It wasn't long after that question started to be asked. What's a young male massage therapist doing sponsoring a sporting club who's predominantly servicing young women and girls? And I answered that by saying, I'm not actually here for your players. Look, I would have loved to have worked with their Division 1 team. That was more of an ego goal than anything. But I came back to them and I was quite genuine, saying, each of those players has at least one parent. The likelihood is that that parent played netball as well, that their ankles and their knees, probably their lower back is a bit smashed up, that they're either still playing netball at a social level or they really want to get back to it. That's who I really want to be working with. That's who I want an introduction to. What I didn't realize with this club, though, is that $750, whilst that was a substantial amount of money to me, particularly in my first few months of running this business, it was almost nothing to them. Their top tier sponsor was paying in the vicinity of $50,000 annually. That $750 didn't buy me very much. I got a logo on some PowerPoint presentation somewhere. I was on a banner somewhere. But being a top tier club, they had physios. They had trainers. They had a GP on the team, all on staff. And those people were saying, hey, you don't need a massage therapist. We're already providing you the things and more than he can offer. And I was actively blocked from any communication to the membership of the club. Now, this was naivety on my part. And I did kick up a bit of a fuss saying, hey, money, bit of return, bit of recognition, that'd be really great, to be met by essentially crickets. And it turned out to be a really, really rotten sponsorship experience. I did learn from that. I thought I had done my due diligence with them, but I didn't quite understand just how big they were. I had no connection to this club, nothing. And so my credibility with them from the outset was zero. Now, I do find spite to be a great motivator, and I did make another attempt at sponsorship. And I thought, I'm going to find a club that's got nothing going for them. They've got no sponsors. No one even knows who they are. And if I give money to them and I get nothing in return, I've had exactly the same outcome as working with this top tier netball club, but I'm going to feel a whole much better about the experience because I guess it's a bit more of a charitable outcome. And so it was about the time of the plebiscite here in Australia as we started to consider legalizing same sex marriage. And I thought I'll reach out to an LGBT sporting club, of which I dug through a few associations and I found in particular a volleyball club. They were reasonably close to where I was working at the time. I reached out to their secretary just with a general introduction. Hey, I'm a business in the area. Are you open to some discussion? Let's talk about what that might look like. And they came back to me, and I met with the secretary. They took my proposal to the committee, and we entered into some negotiation. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a moment because consider the big netball club with a sea of sponsors and no connection, no personal connection to that club. And my motivation was my own gain. Seriously, it was for my own gain. Now, if you're involved in any type of physical activity, whether it be speed cubing, Latin dance, lawn bowls, your own local footy club, maybe you have children participating in one or more activities, you already have a degree of recognition and buy-in to those clubs, and you're probably associated with them because you believe in what they do and you associate with their values. And this is a good thing, and it starts to form the basis for identifying the right fit of who you might want to be associated with in a sponsorship agreement. So if I were to sponsor a netball club again, it would be because my child is a part of the club. And my child probably wouldn't be playing, at this age anyway, in a tier one A grade netball club. It would probably be at the local or district level. And those clubs would probably be very, very grateful for a hand up with some cash contribution. So this is what you would be looking at when considering a sponsorship, looking for that sweet spot where your values align and we've got a genuine connection. Now, I'm just going to jump in there and say, hey, look, it looks like I really want you to be serious about sponsoring. But people ask businesses for money all the time. Now, this is your hard-earned money that you have made through your own gifts, talents, and hard, bloody work. And you are under no obligation whatsoever to part with that funding. It's money that you could be spending on your own household expenses, on buying something for your practice, buying something for your family, going on a nice holiday. You're under no obligation to sponsor anyone or to part with your cash. And I hope that you can take that and use it in your defense if you need to. And I also want to make it clear determination between the word sponsorship and the word donation. Because sponsorship, it is a gift, but it's a gift with expectation. It's a gift of cash, of skills, of goods, with an expectation of return of that investment. And that return on investment is usually exposure. That is why you sponsor. Yes, if you have buy-in with your kids' basketball club, you might be happy with just a logo on the back of a team shirt because you are investing in what you believe in. That is still a return, and you wouldn't expect to pay too much money for just a spot on the back of a t-shirt. But it's certainly as you start to pay out more money that you would want to see a bit of goodwill from the club and some efforts from them to try and keep you as a sponsor. Now, compare that to a donation, which is charitable in nature. And that donation might be to a charity like Compassion, where you may sponsor a child overseas. It could be to something like the Australian Chamber Orchestra because you're very passionate about that style of music and they're very grateful for donations, but there is very little recognition of you other than that your name might be printed in a program somewhere obscure. So that's where often sporting clubs get a little bit confused themselves, is that they want money, but they don't necessarily have to work for it. And sporting clubs usually aren't charities. They are certainly not-for-profit associations, but they're not a charity. And it is in their best interest to keep sponsors for as long as possible because it does assist them in cash flow, and that cash flow assists them in doing what they love to do. So I did start out there with a bit of a dampener about sponsoring a netball club, but that really formed the foundation of how I went on to address my own sponsorship proposals in my next efforts. So as I said, I went out and I sought this LGBT volleyball club, and they were a bit surprised that someone would contact them out of the blue, and they were certainly suspicious because I don't fit being cis, being heterosexual, and I'm not a volleyball player. They were surprised and they were suspicious, and they have every right to be. One might have even accused me of rainbow capitalism. And this was my opportunity, and it was my duty to build trust and build trust rapidly. So we met for coffee, we chatted like old friends, and I presented a few things that I was looking for, and more importantly, the why. And I talked to him about this poor sponsorship experience, and essentially that I was doing this out of spite. I'm ripping my money from there and I just want to give it to you. This is a bit suspicious. But we did go further with that, and I presented some draft terms to them about the things that I wanted. And those things that I wanted were things like, I want the right to be able to say that I'm your sponsor. I want to be able to brag about this if I want to. I want you to brag about me, that I am sponsoring you, because I want to be visible to your members. I want to be invited to stuff. So you don't have to pay for me to come to a club training day. I just want to be able to turn up and know that I'm welcome there and have the ability to talk with your members, because I want to build trust with them. And that tournament that you organise, I want to go to that as well. And I'm going to donate to you a day of service of sports massage because I want to build trust with your members. Now, they came back and they had some quite clear concerns around privacy and revealing members' details. So it's fine. I'll communicate with your designated person only. You can filter that information. But I do want to see some recognition. So the secretary who I'd had lunch with became a client of mine. Nothing really happened in terms of return for several months. And the tournament that they organised just happened to be a national tournament of other LGBT volleyball clubs from all around Australia who came to Adelaide and played in this massive tournament. They had 8 courts going. They had 35 teams. We're talking hundreds of people had come to this event, and most of them I will never see again because they're from other states. But it gave me the opportunity to talk with people, to build that trust. They received free treatment on the day, had a few laughs, and from that stemmed return, as that trust building exercise meant that I suddenly had a client base. Now, the next year, I said to them, look, I don't want to give you any money. And they were a bit upset with that. It's like, no, that's fine. For taxation purposes, I'd actually just rather buy you some goods that you need. What do you need? They asked for volleyballs, which turn out to be quite expensive. And they wanted first aid equipment and a few other bits and pieces. So I purchased those things. I said, can I put my logo on your balls? They were quite okay with that. And we entered into a third year of agreement as well. And again, buying them some goods before COVID hit and the world went all wacky and business changed forever. And they were unable to operate for a very long time as well. So, sponsorship can be a very positive thing. It may not be a great fit for your business, but it can be. So, whether you're a solo therapist like I am and like I was at that time, or whether you're part of a big multi location practice, balancing your investment is crucial. As a solo practitioner trying to sponsor a big club, you will probably just get lost in the noise, and they may not even care about who you are. They'll take your money and run. But in a smaller club, one that aligns with your ideal clients, that's a different story. Just remember that sponsorship is not just about writing a check, it's about offering your skills, your products, and creating a meaningful connection. So you need to have a clear budget in mind, and you need to treat this as a strategic business move. It is part of your marketing strategy. And like any form of marketing, you want to see return on your investment, not just in dollars, but in the connections and the goodwill that you build. So let's address some common concerns. One of the biggest myths is that you have to sponsor somewhere, and I'm here to tell you, you don't. Your cash is precious. And sponsorship, if you do choose to go down that path, it is a strategic business investment. It's not a charity handout. So when negotiating, remember you're already giving. Because one of the things that sporting clubs like to ask for, and it is a bit cheeky when you're already giving them a wad of cash, is that they then turn around and ask for a discount for their members. And sure, if you want to go down the path of discounting and you have enough fat in your budget that you can sustain discounting, do it. You can do that if you want to, but you are under no obligation to do it. It is a business deal and you deserve good value in return on your investment. Now you can organize other things like, okay, well, I'm giving you a load of money and you're asking me for a discount. Well, I want my child to play for free, or I want 50% off my registration costs, or that nice jacket that your members have, I want one of those as well with my logo on it. You can negotiate those things. But just remember, as a therapist, you want to guard your cash carefully and treat your sponsorship like any other business investment. You need to know what your goals are up front, whether it's just visibility of your brand, which might be the logo on the back of somebody's jacket. It might be the name above the bar. It might be the big full color banner that the players run through at the start of their footy match. If visibility is what you want, then you need to negotiate that. It could be negotiating a minimum of, say, 5 posts to their social media page. It could be a position in their program on a regular basis, a minimum number of emails talking about you to their members. You negotiate that before you part with your cash. Now, the club will probably want your money up front, but you could choose to say, no, I'm going to pay it in installments. Thank you very much. I want to see you keep your end of the bargain. And as you do these things, I'll release more cash to you. Those are the things you would negotiate as part of that agreement. But also remember that your cash can talk. I did go on to sponsor another netball club. My daughter was doing an introductory program. We're talking just a couple of $100 this time. And it was more about building a bit of goodwill. And I was doing a bit of coaching with the club as well and team management. And I've got skills in sports administration, in grant writing, in policy and planning. And I spotted a couple of holes which exposed their members to risk. And I raised that with a committee member who was a bit blasé. I said, it's fine. I'm just going to pull my daughter out of the program and I'll pull my cash. But I'm actually here to help you, and I'm prepared to offer my skills and services for you to correct this, because it's not just about me. This is about the safety of all of your participants. The moment I talked about pulling my sponsorship, they were very, very keen to listen. And whether you want to call that manipulation, if you want to, but we are in a capitalist economy, and money does talk, and it can talk quite loudly. when they're not going to listen to risk, you can talk money. So don't be shy about it. I'd really love to hear your experiences about sponsorship if you have gone down that path. You can pop some of those on our Facebook page, perhaps send me an email through foldingtowerspodcast.com.au. But more importantly, if you've got some questions, I'd love to make a part 2 of this episode for you. People love money. They love your money. And it can be a really, really horrible experience when you part with your cash and you see nothing in return. But it can be a really fabulous experience too. Let my experience of working with the LGBT volleyball club to be a really positive lesson for you as well, because you will find people who are immensely grateful that you have shown interest in them and passion enough that you've been able to meet them where they are and help for them to stay active in doing what they love doing. So pop a comment into the socials. Thanks for listening. It is a bit of a tricky world, this one. And as a small business owner, you do need to be really careful with your resources. So if you like what we're producing here through the Folding Towers podcast, please hit like, hit subscribe. If you're listening through Apple Podcasts, you can even leave us a rating and a review. It does help us to be found and helps us to keep on doing what we're doing. Jackie will be back next week, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.